sort of like patchworking things for a couple months because just like, well, fuck it, we're leaving in a few months. It'll be fine. Tape it, pull it.
Half the time we don't even know how we fixed it. Like, how did we fix the earlier problem tonight?
I feel like we all need a young Jamie in our lives.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah, totally.
First, I need to get out of the day job before I can even think about a Jamie.
I've just decided I'm not going to grow my podcast. It is what it is. Like the end.
Pretty soon the kids will be old enough. I could just slave them into it. One of them will get interested in it, and I can just be like...
We've had people volunteer to be Jamies, but it just never seems to work out.
Yeah, they're here for a few shows just when you start to rely on them.
Volunteers are tricky. I've had exactly one workout.
Yeah.
Is that the Canadian?
No, I pay him. It's my art guy. So all of the episode level artwork is done by a volunteer named Brian, and he's been doing it nonstop for like 4 years. I love the guy.
Fantastic. We were very similar, but we started to pay our art guy.
Gal.
Well, I kind of pay mine. He gets the vast majority of the merch sales.
Right. That's a good idea.
So
yeah.
He designs them and runs the store. So I'm like, just take all the money. I think I got 11%. My last check was for $1 and like 24 cents. It's pathetic.
Nice shout out on JRE there.
I know, that was kind of cool.
I was thinking,
and you see, Adam felt bad that he didn't shout you guys out.
I know,
too.
and Darren, you know what? Honestly, that's my fault. Darren was gonna donate before the show, and I was like, let's just wait for after Rogan's show, and we'll do that then. Maybe catch more audience. And Darren was like, no, yeah, we could have done it. We would have been in front and center of his mind.
Oh,
well, if it makes you guys feel better, I got exactly 0 listeners from the shout out. So
come on, really?
No, really. Like my existing audience was really happy about it.
Yeah.
But I get more from like a Joe Rogan retweet, like the shout outs. I've never gotten anything.
So, you gotta get
nice.
Yeah. I mean, we got Randall going on in a few months, and we do tours with him, so we might get talked about a little bit there, but who knows?
Yeah.
I mean, even Dvorak was giving Curry crap for not talking to us about something else the other day now.
Yeah.
I heard that too.
Yeah. I was like, thanks, John. That's awesome.
Yeah.
It's funny because in the beginning it was the opposite. It used to be Adam used to reply to my emails and John would just be crickets.
Yeah.
And now fucking Adam's crickets.
Actually, Adam's went into my spam the other day, in my junk, with all yours and the Snake Bros.
They've all been
They're all going into junk.
All the no agenda.
So private server to private server, and it's still going into junk. How's that happening?
Weird.
Yeah. Anyways,
you must have fucking put some of my messages in the junk.
No, I don't do that. No. But we're not even like the same genre as No Agenda. I mean, we just love the show, but it's really not. It's kind of weird. I mean, our model is similar, like value for value, like yours. But we don't really deconstruct news. We don't get into all that. You're much more closer, I would say, to No Agenda than we are. I mean, we talk about all kinds of crazy shit. It's surprising.
We talk a lot more shit.
Surprising the overlap in audience, really. Yeah.
Well, I think John and Adam are just really proud of anyone that's willing to say no to advertisers.
Right.
It's really important to them.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah.
I live not far from John, so we get together for Chinese food every once in a while.
Oh, right on. That's great.
Which I don't think we've really talked about.
No.
Kind of like our little secret.
No, we won't say anything. Well, I did hear you call him a friend the other day, and I was thinking, I wonder how friendly they are. Like you sounded like you got together with Chinese food with them. Yeah.
Yeah. In fact, the last time we did it, I was talking about Chinese shit shops because how they'll have like pans and just like all the stuff that IKEA has, but then these little tiny shops. And he goes, I know the best one. And like we pay the check really quick. And he's like, come with me. And he brought me into Oakland Chinatown and showed me the best shit shop. And he like shows me all his favorite like cast iron pans he gets from there. And he's like, if you get these from another place, they're like $100 here. They're 20 and they're the best. And it was just like watching John go off in person was really fun.
That's awesome. That's great.
He was posting a picture of himself with some toilet paper today on Twitter.
Oh,
that's good.
What's he going to do with those rolls? They're enormous.
I think it comes with a little floor stand and everything. Looks
That's
classy.
amazing.
I'm going bidet. As soon as I'm moving in like 3 days, I get moved in. First thing I'm getting is a bidet. I don't care about your toilet paper.
That's where my husband wants to go with this.
Yeah.
It's been a fight.
That's what it is. This has caused me to just want to walk away from the toilet paper game. I'm done.
Hey, save the trees.
Like the bidet is like the first step towards the 3 seashells.
I don't know. Using up the water might be worse than the trees.
We're in Canada. We have tons of water.
Yeah, California, we burn our trees and we have no water, so we're just fucked out of
You're
the
only
way.
allowed 1 bidet per day.
Yeah, we have to ration. We're just gonna have to be dirty from now on.
You have to share. Yeah.
Should we get this going then?
Just instead of using the fresh water, just use the stuff right out of the bowl.
That's a great plan.
Yeah. I mean, that's kind of what we're doing overall.
Yeah.
In the scheme of things. Okay, I'm going to fire up the quarter. You ready?
Yeah, let's do it. All right. This is a special episode. We've got Jennifer Briney from the Congressional Dish podcast with us, a fellow Value for Value model supporter. Thanks for coming on the show, Jen.
I'm so happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's great. It's not like your typical show that you would be on, I'm sure. You're a little bit more into the government stuff and all that, but thanks for coming on and sharing your wisdom. I've after listening, I mean, Darren was like, well, we got to get Jen on because he keeps arguing with you on Twitter. And after listening to 4 or 5 episodes of yours, awesome ones, by the way, the one on the EU and the one on the Afghan war, a couple of my favorites. I'm like, Darren, I don't even know what you guys have to argue about.
Vaccines and voting.
Oh,
Yeah,
I thought it was
the
voting. I thought it was
last
voting. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm a big voter. I like work the polls and shit. I'm really into it.
I used to be a big telling people to vote thing too, but I'm so disenfranchised now. It's
And
tough.
I'm the opposite. I was the non-voter before, and a couple of years ago I switched to the voter. So.
Yeah, I just kind of feel like we have 2 ways to fix stuff, and it's like we can try and use the system we have, which is pretty easy to like try, or we can go the violence route. And it's like, if we have this system set up, even though it sucks, like let's just do the thing once every few months and vote. I just think it's so easy. There's no use in not doing it.
Yeah, but
well,
after
I went there. I went to the voting thing. I got my ballot.
You scratched it
And
out.
And I wrote, they're all fascist on it, and then I gave it back. So I participated in a sense. They know how I feel.
In a sense, but I guess, I don't know. I've just seen a lot of close elections that come down to so few people, and I just see the difference every single day watching Congress between good representatives and fucking horrible ones. So if we could have more good ones and less horrible ones, we could have a better government.
Who's your,
at least here in the
who's your
state.
congressman? I mean, I agree.
Mine is amazing. I love mine.
It's not Pelosi.
No, she's across the bay in San Francisco. I'm in Oakland, so I have Barbara Lee, who is the only person in either branch of Congress that voted against that authorization for use of military force after 9/11. My congresswoman's got balls, and she always votes the right way. So she's voted no on all the wars, and
Still alive?
Really,
well,
really
and
like
she pushed that episode you had with her. She pushed that guy to actually answer, to commit on that answer. That was amazing.
Well, so that's Katie Porter.
that's a
and
different one.
she's from my hometown down in Southern California.
Right. Oh, okay.
Yeah, so but that's my mother's, and my mother's district, that's an interesting one because she's had some of the worst people, because it's like Southern Orange County Republicans. They think they're rich, even though most of them are not. And so they've been voting against their best interests forever. And I don't know how the hell Katie Porter got in there. But when I saw that she's representing my mother, I just kind of started paying more attention. And then she did that.
Wow.
Like she basically got us free testing single-handedly.
Yeah.
Even though the legislation there's wiggle room, but she did the best she could. And so that's the thing. We need more Barbara Lees and Katie Porters and less Mitch McConnells, and voting is how we make that happen.
Yeah, but I was going to say, after doing all your research and after researching all the bills and the Congress and where all the money goes and how wasted it is and how broken the system is, it must also feel that it's just non-repairable.
I have to think that it is, or else what do we do, you know? I guess one of the things that really changed my mind that voting does matter was when the Tea Party took over the Republican Party in 2010. Because we've never come out of that yet. Like they took over the House, they passed all kinds of pro-business stuff, anti-worker stuff, and we're suffering the consequences of that. And so when I saw it go in the bad direction, I have to think it can go in the good direction. Now, what's been really, really hard for me, though, is watching the Democratic Party get more and more corporate. I mean, we have some new people, AOC, Katie Porter. There are some exceptions to the rule, but just watching the way the Democratic Party is fighting against the people that care about, you know, working stiffs like us, that's been really hard for me to deal with. The fact that we have these two parties that really have worked together to control our system. I don't know what we do about that. And that's it's demoralizing. It is. I'm not going to pretend that I'm happy every day. And today's worse than most because we have this $2 trillion coronavirus bill being pushed into law. We haven't even seen the text yet. We know it's over 800 pages and they're supposed to vote any minute now. And as of 5 minutes ago, before we went on the air, we still didn't have the text. I mean, this is how we're being governed right now and it's fucked. But it can't get worse, right? Like if we voted
well, I don't know. I mean,
people,
if they take your guns away, it could get worse.
Yeah, I don't have a gun.
Either do I. But,
Yeah.
but I mean, it
No
can't
comment.
get worse. I don't know.
Yeah,
I mean,
I don't know. I just have to hope. It's my hope that it can't get worse, but I have been documenting 8 years of it getting worse. So
Right,
I don't
yeah.
know.
It does seem to be like when you look at the systems, the U.S. system does seem to be the one that would be the best for the people if it wasn't completely overrun by the corporations and the lobbyists and everything else. I mean, it does seem to be that if it was like term limits or maybe, yeah, I guess term limits would probably be the best. I mean, McAfee, I like McAfee's idea about just drafting them all, but that doesn't really help.
Yeah, I think one of the things that gives me hope is when I used to talk during like the early W. Bush years about the role that money had in our politics and our politicians being bought off. People would look at me like I was nuts, where now it's so commonplace and everybody understands. So there's a awareness that is happening to the point that my mother's district has Katie Porter.
Right.
So this is happening, you know, and Joe Crowley is the one that was overthrown by AOC in the Democratic Party. He was a big money guy and some bartender was able to beat him. So it's like, I do see signs of us taking our votes back, which is why the Republican Party is so dead set on making it so hard for us to vote. So we really have to fight for our votes. And I'm not saying it's going to be easy, but I do see some signs for optimism based on the last election. Yeah. So I'm excited to see what happens this November, especially after this Corona clusterfuck, because we are all experiencing it now. Like, so many of us have been comfortable and haven't had to pay attention. Even during the Trump years, you don't have to like Trump, but a lot of us are still comfortable. Now all of us are pretty much on lockdown and everybody's watching press conferences and everybody's watching what Congress is doing today. So today is different. This last 2 weeks has been different. And I don't know, November could be different. We'll see. So
what bill are they talking about on there? Because I'm getting confused because I keep seeing memes and stuff in the media, social media about the bills that they're trying to throw all this extra stuff in there, and then the Democrats blocked one of the relief bills. I mean, is that this thing here, or is that all different? Are there different ones in there?
Yeah, so there are 3 coronavirus bills. The first one was passed on March 14th, I believe, before we kind of realized how crazy this was going to get. And that one basically gave money to the pharmaceutical companies.
Was that
for
the 8.5 billion one or whatever?
Yeah, it was like 8.3 billion. And the thing that pissed me off about that is, like, we're using our tax money to develop these vaccines and they put no profit protections in there for us. So it's like, we're going to pay for them to be developed and then we get to pay again to actually get the vaccines if we choose to put
and then there'll be an
work.
extra 75-cent excise tax in there to go into the fund to pay for the people that get injured by them.
I didn't see that one, but but I definitely know that we're going to get charged multiple times for this thing. So yeah, I wasn't pleased with that, but that was kind of small potatoes. Then they had a second one, and what was that one? I just read it. Oh yeah. So this is one that gave us paid sick leave, because here in the States, we don't have that. And so it also gave medical leave. So essentially our government is going to pay for the company's expenses that come from us actually taking time off if we have COVID-19. So that was the second one that was signed into law, I want to say like a week and a half ago.
Yeah.
What's been going on for the last week is the big bill. So this is bill number 3. This is the one that's trillions of dollars. And so over the weekend, Mitch McConnell had a version that he just was trying to ram into law. So you probably heard a lot of Republicans being like, the Democrats are stalling our bill. Well, their bill was a piece of shit. It didn't have any kind of unemployment insurance in it at all. It didn't have payments for us. It was basically a giant corporate giveaway. And the Democrats were like, no, this isn't happening. So that's the one that died over the weekend. The one that we're looking at today, Wednesday the 25th, is one that was negotiated by Stephen Mnuchin, and who's the Treasury Secretary, Chuck Schumer, and Mitch McConnell. So that's 2 Republicans, 1 Democrat, have basically written this behind closed doors to the point that like we still don't have the final text. And this is the one that apparently about a quarter of it is going to be straight up corporate welfare. This is going to give us one-time payments of $1,200, but only if you make less than $75,000 a year. And I can tell you in the Bay Area, you need $100,000 just to survive. So it's not going to do shit for people here or in New York or in Seattle's going to have a tough time with that amount of money too. The unemployment insurance. Bernie Sanders did something really good for us because he single-handedly got us unemployment insurance that would cover. Usually when you have unemployment here, it's only for people that are kind of like corporate connected. So he got expanded. It expanded so it applies to like gig economy workers. So like Uber drivers, Lyft drivers, massage therapists, people that work for tips, like waitresses. Everyone will be able to get it if they can prove that they're out of work. And it'll be for our full salaries because usually when you get unemployment, it's for like 2/3 of your salary. So for 4 months, we have that, which wasn't even in the last version.
That's better than we got here. If I didn't read that, I mean, everyone's freaking out about the 1,200. I didn't hear anything about the employment insurance.
Yeah, and I've been kind of guilty about that myself. I'm really pissed about the corporate welfare, but I should be highlighting the unemployment more because it is genuinely a good thing, and it'll help a lot of people.
Because Canada, you get 55%
to a maximum of
$500 a week or $580 a week, and then they tax that shit.
Oh yeah, our $1,200 is going to be taxed, and probably our unemployment too. They tax us on all of it. But I heard that you guys were getting $2,000 a month per adult. Is that
so that's not employment insurance. That's what's just come out now. That's just a 4-month Canadian disaster response relief fund or something like that. So that's good for 4 months that you get $2,000. I don't know. I don't get it, but I think my ex gets
Who gets it?
So like if you were out of work today and if you were out of work, you get that $2,000.
So it's over and above that, the little bit of EI. Like my friend lost his job and he gets $280 a week on EI. Like it's not enough to do.
No. So he'd be eligible for that $2,000.
Right,
Or I don't know how that would work.
Yeah.
It was for a lot of people that didn't get laid off, because a lot of people right now have to stay home just take care of their kids because they canceled all the schools and the daycares. So this was if you have to stay home to take care of kids, good enough. You get the $2,000 a month or whatever. We're still essential, or actually, technically, Alberta's not really closed yet. So like, I can still go to Cabela's or to the grocery store, or like. Certain places are closed, but a lot of the places are open. Like the mall's open. I don't think there's too many stores in the mall that are open.
The mall's essential.
I was at the mall today. Well, I mean, we're doing work there, construction work. But I mean, I seen a bookstore was open today. As far as I know, the city seems to be getting busier, if anything. But it's definitely we've only closed like casinos, bars, dining in restaurants and stuff like that. We haven't closed any of the other businesses. I heard there's a rumor about that right now that they might do it next week. But our work is working on a couple of hospitals, so I think we'll be pinged as essential services if they follow the
other provinces.
What the other province has been doing so far, then we'd get to keep working, ideally.
And is that why you wouldn't be eligible for the payment?
Yeah.
Because you're working?
Yeah, but I mean, like if I was to take that payment, it would be more like, I mean, it's Canadian money, so it's not the same, but that payment is like, not
enough.
It would pay my rent, and then I wouldn't be able to eat or pay my car payment or anything
so
else.
that payment, even if I was eligible, which I'm not, even if I was eligible though, it would pay a week of my rent. It's nothing.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. And so I've gotten in fights with people on Twitter today that were like, well, then you should move to Michigan. I'm like, and go fuck yourself. Like the middle of the country doesn't have the outbreak as bad as we do. And so for them to not price it to
your standard of living. Yeah. It has to be.
Yeah. So, I mean, I have friends that are hairdressers, massage therapists. Like they're really, really worried right now, which is why I'm happy that the unemployment insurance, it will probably apply to them. But again, I can't check that because I still don't have the text. So
that loop that Bernie snuck in there to get all those people unemployment, That's the people that this $2,000 is for.
Okay.
Because it works out to about the same amount of money as you'd get on unemployment. So if I got laid off, I just have to go on unemployment. I wouldn't get the $2,000 a month. That $2,000 is more for people that didn't get laid off. A lot of places are, you know, the same thing, like the hairdressers and the waitresses and the Uber drivers and stuff like that are sort of semi-self-employed. So you don't get a pink slip. You're just not allowed to go to work.
Yeah.
Or parents that just had to not go to work to take care of their kids.
Well, and that's what's kind of interesting in the bill that's already become law with our sick and medical leave. They don't give as much money to the people that are staying home to take care of their kids. So even though they're just as out of work, like whether they are out of work because they're sick or because they're taking care of their kids, if they're home for that reason, then they get less money. So I found that really weird. Like, that's what happens when you read these bills. You just see these weird things and they never get discussed.
And was there a bunch of stuff in that bill that shouldn't have been in there for corona-wise? Like, what about all the weird stuff that Pelosi was trying to squeeze through?
Well, so the two bills that have become law were refreshingly dingleberry free. There wasn't anything attached. It's this big one, though, that they're hiding the text from us. That's what I'm really going to pull apart with a fine-tooth comb, because both sides are trying to get weird stuff into law. So, like, there's one provision that I'm pretty sure the Republicans are going to get. They've been pushing for it forever, which allows smaller banks to have less money in reserves. That has nothing to do with the coronavirus, but they're probably going to get that. So that's one dingleberry that I'm pretty sure is going to be in there. And God only knows what else. And this is why they hide the bill from us. So it's this big one. It's bill number 3 that everyone's really nervous about, because God only knows. And by the way, there are some portions of the Patriot Act that expired on March 15th that they still haven't renewed. So that's a big dingleberry that I'm going to be looking for. I wouldn't be surprised at all to see that in there.
What do you think the sort of health implications are going to be from sort of a big brother health standpoint?
Well, I don't know.
Can they do that sort of thing federally?
Well, we don't have a nationalized healthcare system, and which is one of our big problems here. It's one of the reasons the testing was such a mess, that, you know, we have different equipments in different labs, so we can't just send out one test to everyone, because we have this private public partnership that it's a big old mess. And so, but that does kind of help us it's going to be really hard for them to put out an order for them to collect everybody's blood or DNA or anything like that. I don't know where this is going to lead. I mean, so far, I've been on Twitter all day looking for any kind of signs of they're taking away our rights in this bill. And so far, we haven't seen any, which is good. But I don't know where this leads. I mean, they're already talking about taking everyone's temperature at the airports.
We're doing that here now.
Yeah. So it's like we need to find this balance between taking care of health and safety and not losing the few rights we have left. And so I don't know where this goes. I'm hoping it doesn't go to the crazy place, but
I'm gonna read you something from our chat room today that I thought is a pretty good thing of where we're at in 2020. I saw a weird Ministry of something vehicle following me around today, maybe business enforcement. But I'm in a Brandon truck and I have my papers, so I don't care if they're looking for me or not. It's just like, wow, we need papers. It's 2020, and this dude has to drive around with papers in Canada.
What's a branded truck again? Like just a company truck?
Because he's in a company truck that's approved to be on the road.
Yeah.
Otherwise, he's worried. He needs to fucking present a paper if he gets pulled over. He needs to show him his papers.
Yeah. I read a thing back in the W. Bush years. I wish I could find it again, but it was like the 10 steps of a closing down society. And a bunch of them happened during the W. Bush years. So like when they start torturing people, red flag. When they take away rights, red flag. When they start harassing journalists, red flag. And the one that I just kind of held on to, I was like, well, they haven't done that, was the travel restrictions. And so that's one of the things that's really making me uncomfortable with all this, even though medically I do understand it. But they've closed our borders now. And even states are trying to figure out how to stop people from moving from state to state, which as a Californian, I kind of get. Because at this point, I've been on lockdown since the 14th, and there are red states that are just like doing whatever they want. So I don't want to have to be locked down again because they come here for vacation. So there's the medical part of me is like, okay, I get it. But the part of me that lived through 9/11 goes like, they're shutting down our freedom of movement. And I just don't like the precedent that this sets and the way that, I mean, I'm accepting it. I've complied completely. So I do have those thoughts in the back of my head where I'm just like, where does this lead down the road? Like maybe coronavirus isn't a bullshit virus, which for the record, I don't think it is. But what if someone later wants to shut down our freedom of movement by saying there's a bullshit virus? So it's just, I'm really uncomfortable with the way that, you know, Canada and the US have been allies and neighbors for a very long time, and I can't go there right now. And when all this started, I was in Mexico and we were afraid, like, can we even get home? So I'm just really uncomfortable with the whole thing. I mean, what are you guys feeling about this?
Well, they're getting ready to shut down, I think, interprovincial travel in Canada as well. I mean,
Go for it, Darren.
I think it's just a giant control move. That's my 2 cents. I mean, I'm kind of I think that the Oxford model, that's kind of showing that this thing's been around, which is kind of what Adam was talking about as well on No Agenda, that's what the Oxford model that just came out yesterday, the day before, is kind of supporting his theory, where they're saying that they figure like 40 million people in England already had it. And that if they can find a way to test who's had it already, they were looking at some sort of antibody test or something like that so they could see who's had it. And they're predicting that everyone's already had it already. I mean, to me, the whole thing that, you know, now Prince Charles has it and Tom Hanks has it. You know, there's 100 fucking people in Australia has it and Tom Hanks is one of them. And, you know, we've got this giant celebrity movement where they're all staying in their houses and they've all got coronavirus. And I don't know, the whole thing seems to me like maybe I don't know.
Well, that's
maybe
what
it
the Event
started more
201
real. I mean, they ran this fucking
The
this
Event
simulation
201
of it.
they
Like
talked
Don't
about the
get kicked
messaging.
off. Don't
What?
say that too many times.
What do you mean?
Oh, yeah, Event
kicked off
2.
of what? I mean,
This
Yeah.
whole thing will collapse.
That's all right. It's already collapsing. So, you know, they're running like Bill Gates is running his fake events up before it. You know, 3 months before this kicks off, he's got a fake one with the coronavirus.
It's just a coincidence.
Yeah, it's all, there's so many coincidences.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I think I'm of the belief that we're probably like 2-3 weeks away and everything's going to sort of snap back and it's going to be, you know, I think we're going to slip back to normal quicker than most people realize. And a bunch of people are going to get billions and billions of fucking dollars while this all happens. Some new laws are going to get snuck through. And we're just a little more docile. We're a little more, I mean, there was a fucking poll going around Calgary the other day on Facebook on whether or not the government should be able to come into my fucking house to see how much food I have. And I mean, it's like 50-50. So that's like the world we're in now. Like I can see people are on social media shaming people for being over at their friend's house to have dinner or something like that. And I don't want to live in that world. I mean, Corona or not, I'm a free man supposed to be in a free state. And if I want to go over to Michael's house and Michael wants to have me at his house, I don't think that's something where we should have neighbors. You know, I don't know. I just feel like we're closer to 1930s Germany than I'd care to admit right now in a lot of different ways. And I mean, that's with nationalism, global instability, all the economies are tanking. We've got now a pandemic going around. There's a lot of people in China that are blaming the U.S. for things. There's a lot of politicians in the U.S. that are blaming China for things. And I just think we're
really
heading down a really
with
messed
that.
road. I think my honest opinion is that the coronavirus is the first tick of an economic Cold War going hot.
Or it could be a hot war because I've been watching. So I read the defense authorizations every year and the funding, and it's been aimed at China now for years. And we have a giant military buildup in the South China Sea that Americans are not aware of. We have one on Russia's border that started during the Obama years, and then this China one is more recent. But it's huge, and we don't even know that it's there. And so to watch the anti-China rhetoric, I mean, yeah, that's the thing. Like I do believe this virus is real because I know someone who has it. And he's like a party friend of mine. Like, he's not a podcaster, not any of this. He works in an ER. He has it. He's home right now. He's doing okay. But when you have a friend that has it, it becomes a lot more real. And then my stepsister is also a nurse here in Oakland, and they're going through all kinds of equipment shortages. And so just because people that I trust are going through it, it's like, okay, I think this is actually real. But it's how this type of stuff is used by the disingenuous pricks that want to control the world. I think it's very fair to be concerned with both at the same time. Yeah. And I don't really know what to do with those feelings.
I know, me too.
Well, I mean,
back
you know what
forth,
my thing is the way the entire globe, especially the Allied, the Allied sort of West, the NATO, the way we've sort of all fallen in lockstep and told all our citizens to get home. And I don't know, it just seems like more than that. You know what I mean? Or, I mean, the other thing is that maybe there's more to this virus than we realize. I mean,
well, and that too.
Because now we've got Trump's got everyone else on board saying, you know, I'm looking at other countries' leaders saying now China's got to pay. China's got to pay. China's got to pay. China owns all these people's national debts. So now these people are going to be like, hey, we don't want to pay you. Or I don't know. I see the next move is going to be something like that. Not to mention everyone just ran the fuck out of China and left all their manufacturing facilities there. Are they going to go back after and take those over, or you know, what's going to happen there? China's manufacturing for the rest. So the like national Chinese business model just sort of fucking collapsed in some ways, because I don't think U.S. manufacturing is going back. I would say maybe a lot of European manufacturing might be a little more timid about getting their supply chains from what could become a hostile nation.
Well, and we're learning a lot of lessons here, like the fact that we can't get, like one of the reasons we can't do the testing here in the States is because we can't get the swabs. It's like we run out of fucking toothpicks. And so or not toothpicks, Q-tips. And so that's why we can't do these tests, because we are getting them from China and other places. Like, we've allowed our own ability to take care of ourselves to go overseas, and now we don't have masks and we don't have the things we need for our own tests. And so we're learning our lessons about letting globalism run wild. And so I think you're absolutely right. We're seeing some kind of massive
and in
reset,
some ways,
which might not be a bad thing.
I agree.
You could have borrowed some of our masks.
How fucking ironic can it be that while Trump's in charge, he gets Trudeau to close the fucking borders, send the refugees back to the States, and maybe ends globalism?
I mean, it's what he said he was going to do.
I know. And the Chinese are blaming the U.S. soldiers that went to the Navy games there for dropping the virus.
Yeah.
We would have given you a bunch of masks, but
I mean, you guys have now won the trade war.
I didn't understand.
You guys have won the trade war now. It would seem.
Yeah, it's kind of funny how Donald Trump just Forrest Gumped his way into achieving everything he set out to do. It's stunning. You know, now we're all mad at China, and he gets to shut down the border with Mexico for real. And
you guys keep the tariffs. China loses the tariffs, and he's got Trudeau sending refugees and closing the border. I mean, he's got to be laughing at sometimes.
I can see why my conspiracy podcaster friends are having a field day with this. I really can.
Oh, you need to check on your conspiracy friends. I mean, some of them are freaking the fuck out right now.
I know. I'm just kind of staying out of it.
Some of them are not okay. I mean, it changes day to day. I mean, I go back and forth here. I'm like, you know, what are they going to do? Because I'm not okay with getting told I can't leave my house. And I'm really not okay with seeing, you know, like, God forbid, like you look at like an LA or a New York. I don't want to see fucking military vehicles rolling into Calgary. That's a huge red flag for me. I mean, I'm a fucking Indian. I've seen this. Well, I haven't seen it personally.
But did you see the video of the tanks in San Diego?
Was that real? I never know what to fucking believe on Twitter anymore, because I see one and it's tanks in Florida, and then someone's like, this is from 3 years ago.
Yeah, San Diego's
I recognize
a
this.
town.
It is. It definitely is. But I don't know. That one, whether it was recent or not, just like that image in my head, I just really don't like it.
Tanks going on boats to go over the ocean.
Did you see it on TV?
No, it was on Twitter.
It was Twitter, so God only knows. But then at the same time, like, here I am on quarantine, and Joe, my husband is Joe. We're on a strict 14-day quarantine because we decided to go to a wedding on the 14th. And so we all agreed that if we do this, we're going to pretend we have it, so not to infect other people. So we're strict, like no grocery store, nothing. But we are allowed to go on walks. And just this weekend, going across the street, I live across the street from a state park, It was mobbed with people. They're not maintaining social distance. And it's like, so at the same time, I do understand that if this is as infectious as they say it is, and I do trust Anthony Fauci, because this guy Fauci, who's now a big celebrity, he's been in the government since the Reagan years, pretty much my entire life.
And you trust him?
I do, because I've been watching him for so long. And he has told, like, everything he has said to Congress has panned out. And a lot of times he's the one being like, you guys need to calm down. It's not that serious. So he's played that role so many times that when he says, this is serious and this is what we have to do, he's the one that I'm watching. You know, so when he says it's that serious, and I do trust him, watching us prove that we're not going to take it seriously ourselves, that's where I do see the need for the government to be like, okay, dummies, now we actually have to step in and say, we have to close these parks. We have to force you to stay home. Like, I'm so torn on it because I did see so many people just ignoring the orders that now we have to close all the parking lots. And I'm cheering that on because I want them to get the hell out of my neighborhood so that I can go for a run, you know? Yeah, I don't, at the same time, I remember the Patriot Act. So yeah, I don't know.
Do you want freedom or not?
I know. And at this time,
it's a harder question. If you really consider it, it's a harder question than people want to answer.
Well, of course it is.
Because all these people that do say they want freedom were also the first ones to start jumping up and down and saying, I need a check or I can't pay my rent in 2 weeks.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, why are we paying people? Why is it $2 trillion to pay everybody? Like,
it's because the government's forcing them. If the government forces you to stay home, I mean, you know, you got to do something. You can't just say that on one hand and then not do anything financially for people. I mean, if you're going to be in control, you got to be in control.
If you're not going to let them earn.
You're giving them money now, but they have to pay it back in taxes plus interest later in a world that money is much less. It doesn't have nearly as much value as it did when you borrowed it. It just doesn't seem like a wise thing.
We're funding both ends. So it's like, I look at my own rent situation. If the government's going to give money to the investors that own my building, then they should not be collecting from me.
Yeah.
Or if the government's going to give me money to pay my rent, then they're getting paid and they shouldn't get it from the government. What's happening right now is that the government is paying on both ends. And that's where I just have a problem with it. Like, pick a strategy and go forth with it, but they're just throwing money at the wall with really no strategy at all. And they're also doing both sides half-assed, which is why I'm afraid that it's not even going to work. And we're going to be back here in a month with another $1 trillion bill because there's people that are going to get evicted, you know? People like obviously I'm a podcaster, so hopefully my audience keeps funding me. But $1,200 for me would do nothing, you know? And like, the government doesn't count me as even having a job. So I probably wouldn't get unemployment either. And so what happens if I can't pay? So it's just that we're in this unprecedented situation. I don't trust the people that are in charge to know how to handle it or to not abuse it. You know, a fourth of this bill is going to corporate welfare. It's already being abused. And so the fears that you have about this being straight bullshit, I mean, they've lied to us so many times before. So, and that's a big problem too, because I get being told you have to stay in your home for 3 months and going, I don't believe you, because all of the times before and all the different viruses that were going to kill us all didn't.
Yeah.
You know, so it's like, you cry wolf so many times. Why are we supposed to believe you now?
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, I get every side and it just makes me want to go to sleep.
Yeah. No, I was going to mention cry wolf exactly. The media has done it so many times you don't believe them anymore.
So I'd be interested to hear your take on this because, you know, you're somewhat of a congressional expert, I guess, in a way, just from watching a lot of C-SPAN. And I listen to a few of your shows. I really love them. You're doing great. But what if Trump and whoever is working with him, they're trying to run they're trying to break the bank. And so they're going to let them just run the bill as high as they want, just keep adding more and more and more stuff to it to where it becomes insolvent. Do you think Congress, from watching Congress now for these years, Do you think Congress would be able to handle the responsibility of taking back the Treasury?
No.
No.
No, absolutely not. But that also goes, now we get into like, what is money? Because my 200th episode, I decided to dive in and find out what is the Federal Reserve, where I found out that our money isn't really real.
It's
so
a
at this
mess.
point, as long as we can keep a roof over our head and food in our mouths, like, okay, like go ahead and print more phony baloney money. It's not real anyway. So I'm kind of stuck with that too. Like until we actually have a currency that's tied to something. Who cares?
They were talking about reducing the reserve to 3%. And they said Canada had 16 in 2008, and that's why it wasn't as hard on Canada, because it was a higher reserve ratio.
Now we have none.
Where the U.S. was like 8.
We sold all
now
the
they're
gold.
taking it down to 3.
So, you know, in some ways, it just seems like maybe all these countries are just robbing the fucking bank before it breaks right the fuck down. It's like, all right, Canada, you pull out a couple $100 billion, we'll pull out a few trillion. The UK will pull out 300 because it's all just fake money on computers, and the fucking jig is up.
Yeah.
It feels like the jig has to be up soon. It's a house of cards. That's what I always say.
House of Cards started in 1913, and it just keeps getting wobblier and wobblier. It's going to crash, and I think of the 3 things that we need: food, shelter, air. You know, I think we might have this moment where we look at our communities and, all right, let's grow some food. Let's go back to basics. Because I honestly, like this economy we have, I don't know what its foundation is anymore.
Well, it's always
but
belief.
this Congress wouldn't be able to handle it. I can tell you that much. They can't handle this bill.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. Sorry.
Defense rests.
Debbie Downer here.
The defense rests. Yeah. Man, California. You got to get out of California if you got to start growing food to survive.
What are you talking about? We're the breadbasket of the country.
Yeah, but there's like, what, 65 million of you?
Yeah, but my brother lives
With
in the
no
middle of
water.
a farm.
Oh,
You
perfect.
can just
Head to
slaughter
the
his neighbor's
farm.
goats.
Perfect. Here we got tons of wildlife and stuff still, so.
Yeah. I don't know what's going to happen. All I know is right now I have a roof over my head. Right now my family is not dying. We have food. We're eating some weird food since there was panic buying. And that's the thing too, like the media makes me so angry here, because if they had just been calmer about it and said, okay, you're going to have to stay home, but the grocery stores are staying open, Target will still be open, we wouldn't have empty shelves all over our country and then people buying out all the masks and all the toilet paper. Like, this response is so hectic and chaotic because they freaked people out so badly. And so there's just so much anger to go around.
That's
thought they
okay. You
had
can
pretty good
express it
control
here.
of it.
You can vent.
I didn't think it got as, I don't know. I didn't see it here because we're in the bubble of Calgary. You know, it's still kind of like this dream world compared to the U.S. and a lot of places in the U.S. But it didn't get chaotic, and I haven't really seen it get super.
Well,
Everybody bought the toilet paper, but
yeah, the toilet paper was gone for a bit, but it's back.
But everything else was still there.
For a couple days, Safeway in Chestermere was pretty pick dry. I went there the one day, and
I mean, in Oakland, it's probably a lot different.
oh fuck, I couldn't imagine. I went to the Safeway the one day, and there was only like some pork left,
Yeah.
and then there was no milk, there was
Tons of
no
pork.
eggs, there was no fucking nothing
Yeah.
else, there was no canned goods. But I mean, I was just going there to get some like treats for the kids, so I didn't care. Like, I've got food usually.
Gas is cheap. You can just drive around town.
Oh yeah, gas is so cheap. It's so
Your
cheap.
car is kind of like an isolation bubble for you, you know?
I'm still working full time, so
I
I'll
get to
take
get
it.
out of my bubble and go to the store again on Monday, but the last time I was there,
Is Monday
the
your
meat-
day out?
yeah, that's day 15. I'm on day 10 right now, and I'm feeling pretty good. So I
So that's
don't
gonna
think we
suck.
have it.
You're gonna be like out, and it's like, yeah, I'm free, but you still can't go do anything. I guess you go
want
to
to
the
know what
grocery
sucks
store.
even more? Tomorrow's my birthday.
Oh,
happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
Oh, thanks. That's the day they're going to sign this monstrosity in the law. I am on house arrest. We forgot to buy cake. We do have vodka, though, so that'll help.
You'll remember this one.
Is alcohol
Yeah.
an essential service?
Actually, our liquor stores are open, and what's great, so are our weed dispensaries.
Yeah,
They were
and
Those
called
are deemed
essential.
essential.
so far in Canada, weed and alcohol are essential.
Yep.
groceries are essential.
Well, I was going to tell you that in that story I was saying we got cut off for a week. And on day 5, they tried to shut down and take the alcohol away. And then everybody just lost their minds. And then they had to open it up as fast as possible and realize they shouldn't do that.
I mean, if it makes you feel any better, the Canadian shops are sold out too.
Yeah.
I'm actually we're trying to buy a hunting rifle right fucking now just to literally go hunt deer with. Not for the apocalypse. I want to go hunt a deer. And I can't find a 30-30 anywhere in town. And except for the super high end ones, like $3,000.
Can't borrow one?
Not in Canada, it's illegal, bro.
I don't know.
It's just kind of wild. I just don't feel like it had to be this way.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
It's just not necessary where Safeway's still open. And so
Yeah.
now we're eating the weirdest things. Like the only sausages we were able to get were these chicken sausages with jalapeno, bacon, cheese, beans, and corn in them. They're
my
horrible.
God. That sounds great.
Do you think that's the media is terrible. So I don't want to be here I'll be the guy defending the media. But I feel like the whole, our government is fucking pathetic. I'm watching Trudeau come out every day and just pat himself on the back for the most part. They finally got some shit through today. But I don't know if you heard what he tried to sneak through. Our Liberals just tried to sneak through that they can have the freedom till the end of 2021 to tax whoever at whatever rate they want and to spend money without House
Oversight?
approval.
Oh, no.
Yeah, and then the thing is because it's such a fucking high profile bill where people's money's tied up, you've got people on Twitter freaking out on all the people that are trying to voted no.
Yeah.
And meanwhile, it's like, well, these guys are trying to fucking hijack the country right now.
And the media is bought and paid for by them, too,
Yeah.
right?
So we dodged a bullet, and they took all that stuff out. Most of it, I think, anyway.
Oh, that's good. Yeah. Our
But-
corporate welfare is flying through.
Ours just seems like, we'll end up bailing out the airlines again for sure. And then they'll just abuse us again. It's hard because I don't really agree with nationalizing things. But if you're going to give the airline $50 billion, I feel like I should, maybe be guaranteed my seat and maybe my
did
bag.
you see what happened with Boeing? So the Democrats were writing their version, but they don't have the power to get it through because Nancy Pelosi sent everyone home, which is annoying. But they did write a version, and in it, they were going to say, if you take any of the bailout money, then the government either might get a stake or needs to get a seat on your board. They had all these different ideas. And Boeing said, if you do any of that, we don't want your money.
Wow.
To which I was like, okay, don't take our money.
But that was right after Nikki Haley quit. She got off the board because she said, if you're going to take that money, then I don't want to be part of this. So she dropped off the board. I think that was yesterday.
Interesting. Yeah.
And then they came out with that today.
Yeah, they want the money with no strings, and this horrible Congress of ours is going to give it to them.
So is WestJet getting the money? Is that who you're talking about?
Oh, I don't know. No, I just seen the rumor coming about $50 billion for the airlines or some sort of. That might have been the U.S. ones, but the Canadian ones are gonna need money.
Because that lady that owns WestJet now, I can't think of her name right off the top
I
of my
thought
head.
WestJet
It's
was
public
employee
now,
owned.
yeah. No, not
No,
anymore.
it's sold. And she's the one who owns Indigo Chapters also. And she's one of the chairmen of the board on Bilderberg. She's one of the ruling people on Bilderberg as well. So that's interesting if they got a ton of bailout money out of that. $50 billion. Wow.
I wouldn't say the Canadian one will be quite so big. It'll be like,
No, you're
5
right. It'll probably
billion.
be like 5, yeah.
I think we're giving the oil companies $15 billion. The Canadian oil companies,
The tar sands companies.
Yeah.
so they can get that $5 a barrel oil.
Yeah,
I mean, gas is going to be like 15 cents a liter here soon, so
They're just going to build refineries. They're going to have to.
they're going to have to.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what I think they should be doing anyway. Is
Yep,
just
totally.
build the fucking refinery, use your own oil, so you don't care what Russia
That's right.
and the Saudis are doing.
Yeah.
Globalize some things, but not everything.
Yeah.
You should totally nationalize your resources. There's no reason that should be shipped all over the planet. That's ridiculous.
In different zigzagging patterns, and
Yeah.
then at the same time you're going to charge me fucking carbon tax?
Right, totally.
What did I do?
Yeah.
Yep,
Anyway,
exactly.
I digress. So what
I had
parts of the
another-
Patriot Act got left out? That's almost cause for celebration.
Almost. So the main one is something, I'm trying to remember the exact details of it. It was the lone wolf provision, which lets the government tap people, even though they're not. Sort of, yeah. So if they think, they just have to say, like, we think this person might be a terrorist, even if they have no proof that they're connected to any kind of terrorist organization or plot or anything, they can tap our phones. There's also a provision that says, like in my house right now, I have quite a few pieces of electronics, and it used to be they'd have to get a warrant like for my computer and get a warrant for my phone and get a warrant for my husband's computer. Now they can get one warrant and it kind of covers everything that I come into contact with. And so that's the type of stuff that was expiring. But Section 215 was the big one. I can't remember what the details were, but the thing was that it expired on the 15th. But what they always do is they backdate the permissions. And we have absolutely no way to know if the Trump government stopped collecting this information. And I think there's a snowball's chance in hell that they did. But like, what is law anymore? If you don't have any way to enforce the laws, does the law exist? Is kind of where I'm at on this Patriot Act stuff. But it is interesting that it was allowed to lapse and still hasn't been renewed. But again, like, no one knows about it.
Yeah.
So,
and you guys seem to have really come into this two different levels of justice. I mean, it really seems like rich people can do whatever the fuck they want.
Or the poor people. Or if you're not paying taxes. I mean, the homeless crime and all that kind of stuff, the crime under 900, like, or 1,500.
Oh, is that a real thing?
JDC,
I guess you're in California.
JCD and then and Adam talk about all the time. I mean, it's happening here. I mean, our cops can't do anything here to crime. People break into your place, they steal your bikes, break into your cars. Nothing ever happens.
Graham just got robbed the other day, so he's a pretty sore spot right now.
I've been robbed a lot lately. I mean, nothing.
Totally understand it.
Yeah.
I won't bring my car to San Francisco, like, ever.
Oh yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
I'm serious, because if they break the windows and steal your shit, like, the cops don't care. They won't do anything about it. And it happens all the time. It's like known for it. Yeah, Oakland's better. In many, many ways, Oakland's better, which is funny because we have such a bad reputation.
Yeah.
But no, what John talks about, it's very, very real. John is not, when John tells you stuff about the Bay Area, I have found him to be accurate.
Wow.
100% of the time.
But I mean, your point is well taken, Darren. It's the rich people and the
except
the
for
poor.
Harvey. I mean,
it's us taxpayers in the middle class that get that hose all the way through.
Harvey seems to be getting taken down.
He's
Weinstein.
gonna die. He's gonna disappear.
You think?
He's got the Rona.
He's got the Rona.
He does have the Rona.
It's unbelievable.
How the fuck does Harvey
Rona.
Weinstein get tested?
And that Italian opera singer, that's the equivalent of Harvey over there, and what's his name? Starts with a B. I can't
Benito
remember.
something or other.
Yeah. He's got it too.
This is how they're going to off all the inconvenient boomers.
Well, they're not going to off them. They're going to just like disappear them. I mean, they're going to end up on their own little island somewhere. This is their escape.
They get to escape and just go diddle off into the sunset.
And that's same with all the CEOs. Like, how can all the CEOs?
Did you read that list? It was like 102
It's unbelievable.
days.
Have you paid attention to that at all?
All the
list of
resignations.
CEOs, the resignations of all the CEOs. I mean, it's mind-boggling.
What
I
are
think
they
it's
resigning for?
resignation.info.
Because they knew something was going to happen. I mean, it's like, what else can you? You know, the timing is impeccable. Like right before the crash, all these CEOs just.
Well, Disney for sure. Disney and Bill Gates are two of the big ones.
Yeah.
Well, and you heard a bunch of our senators sold off.
Oh yeah,
stock.
yeah.
And then it dropped 75%.
They sold right before this all went down.
That's unreal.
Including my own horrible Senator Dianne Feinstein.
Oh, look at that. John Flanagan resigned
So why did
today.
Pelosi send Congress home?
The Rona.
I don't know.
Really?
They have these planned, they call them district work periods, but like they're vacations. And they had one planned for that week. But by the 14th, that was the day that I got home at midnight that night. I had been in Mexico for a week, which was a total trip. You wake up in Mexico, everything's normal. You come to the States and like all hell had broken loose. And so, but that day, all hell had broken loose. It was very clear from the second I landed in the United States that something was up. And she still allowed them to go home. So now what we're dealing with is like, is there a way to let our representatives vote remotely? Or should we call them back to work, which is where I'm at. If my grocery store workers have to be at work, or if my stepsister needs to go to these hospitals, get your asses on a plane. We're paying you a minimum wage of $175,000 a year.
For the rest of your life.
No, they just got an extra
just while they're
25
working.
million.
Oh, that doesn't for the rest of your life anymore?
No, never did.
Oh.
It's based on a percentage. So you get your health care for a certain amount of time based on how long you've been in Congress, but you have to be there for like decades to get the health care for a long time. And the 25 million it's not for the Congress people themselves in this new bill. They do need some extra money in order to set up this telework situation or maybe televoting or whatever the hell they're thinking of doing. But yeah, Pelosi sent them home. And she never should have. And I'm furious about it. And why there isn't more people upset about this, I don't understand. And right now, Mitch McConnell, after they vote on this monster, is thinking of sending the Senate home too. So we're literally not going to have our government in D.C. to do their work if we need them.
Wild.
After maybe tomorrow, unless some decisions change. But yeah. So, and what's wild about this is that, you know, it's done by population here. So every person in the House of Representatives represents about 700,000 people. Well, if you look at New York proper, they have millions of people. So we have a lot of representatives in New York City. 2 days ago, Dr. Birx got up on the White House press conference and said, if you've even been to New York City, we want you to quarantine for 14 days. That's how bad it is here. That's like 20 of our people in the House of Representatives that are no longer allowed to even go back. So now that different cities are on like strict quarantines, we don't even know if they can be called home anymore. I think it's going to go down in history as one of the stupidest things Nancy Pelosi has ever done on quite a long list of stupid things. So,
do you think it'll finally get her out of office?
No, because San Francisco just keeps voting for her, just blindly. That's what's so frustrating. We have all these so-called woke people right across the bay here that could get rid of her quite easily, and they refuse to do it.
Why?
So she just keeps coming back, but she raises a shitload of money for the Democratic Party, which is why they're protecting her as much as they possibly can. She's a fundraiser.
Yeah.
That's what she does.
Where'd she get all her money?
Oh, I don't even know, to tell you the truth. But she's quite wealthy.
Yeah, she's
They
like a
all are.
lifetime congresswoman,
I think it was real estate.
and she's got like $110 million in the bank or
Her
something.
husband's really rich, I think.
Yeah, I think it's her husband. Like Dianne Feinstein married a rich dude. But even the people that go into Congress as just regular people are able to leave as millionaires because they're allowed to own stock. They shouldn't be allowed to even have stock if they're in Congress. And we're only talking about 535 people. So even though it might be kind of harsh to be like, you have to sell your stock, I think if you're going to represent the people, that's just how it should be. But they've tried to police themselves on this. There was something called the Stock Act that actually Nancy Pelosi had a role in, because 60 Minutes, which is it's a show that all the boomers watch on Sunday nights. Back in 2012, they did an expose on John Boehner and Nancy Pelosi and a couple other people showing how they benefit from their stocks and how they trade based on their insider knowledge. It was like a big thing.
Is that the one about the Visa? About visas? Or Visa or MasterCard?
No, this was just about how they trade. They get information because they're on these high-powered committees. And of course, they're going to get information about companies that we don't have. And then they're able to trade accordingly. So they did something called the Stock Act, which the thing that was in the Stock Act that would have made the most difference didn't actually prohibit anything, but there was supposed to be a website where irritating people like me could go on and look at what stocks our representatives had. And it didn't only apply to congressmen and senators, it was supposed to apply to their staffers too. Because if you think of like the West Wing, like Leo McGarry, the chief of staff, he's a very important person. So you should know who the chief of staff is trading with too. Exactly a year after they passed this into law, and when they passed it, they had like a signing ceremony, and there's Obama with like 35 people behind him all clapping and handing out pens and shit. Exactly a month or a year later, they gutted it. So the website no longer exists.
Yeah.
The staffers don't even have to report their trading information. It's only applying to the representatives themselves. And like, keep in mind, a lot of them trade and say it's like their husbands or their wives' stock. So they completely gutted it. And the way that they did it was through empty rooms. So they had one senator, he was a Democrat, who got up in the Senate, said, does anyone object to this? No one was in the room, so no one objected. So it flew through there, went through the House. The Republicans put it through, and Obama signed it on the day of the Boston Marathon bombing. So it never even got covered by the news.
Oh, my God.
That's a good one.
Yeah. And that was the first thing that I witnessed when I was first starting Congressional Dish, because I was like, what is my podcast? That was the first thing I witnessed where I'm like, oh shit, I'm onto something here, you know, because I lived in Boston at the time. I was still, you know, I was all up in that. I was on the lockdown, the whole thing, but I was still paying attention to Congress, and I was stunned that that happened. And now we're seeing the repercussions of that, because these people are able to be, you know, they come into Congress as a bartender and they leave as multimillionaires, and it's because they're trading on the stock market on their insider knowledge, and it's all legal.
Wow.
Well, it was a perk at first, really.
So this isn't your first lockdown?
No, it's not. This is my second time on lockdown, actually. I've been thinking about that a lot lately.
Which one was
Because I accepted it
better?
the first time, too.
The first one, it seems more like, you know, there's some dangerous bombers on the loose.
The first one was straight up fun, I've got to tell you, because, I mean, it was one kid. We had known by the time we were locked down that the older brother had gotten run over by a car. So I woke up at 9 a.m., found out we were on lockdown, cracked a beer, watched the news all day. I could hear the helicopters going over me, and I had the police scanner. So it's like they didn't know exactly where he was, but I was pretty sure he wasn't running into my house. And then they lifted it at 5. So it was one day. It was a completely different situation. And it was Boston kind of being like, we're going to catch you, motherfuckers. So there was kind of like that attitude that we were all really wanted to get him. But at the same time, it was a 19-year-old kid, and we shut down Boston. And everyone was cool with it. And that was the first time I was like, uh-oh. Like, we're being trained for something that we might not want to be trained for. And now the whole country is on lockdown.
Yeah. Is there any other gems or conflicts of interest or corruption that you remember from doing your podcast over the years? Like one that comes out for me is that Jack Keane, when you talked about Jack Keane on one of your shows, the conflicts there. I mean, the people would never hear about the him being involved in Afghan and the battery company, and I mean, it's just mind blowing. Is there any other ones that would stick out to the type of work you've done?
Well, I mean, it's in every single episode. I mean, just think of like Jim Mattis, for instance. He was Trump's first pick because Jack Keane, he was the one that Trump wanted to be his defense secretary, and so did Hillary, which is fascinating. So this guy is a favorite of both parties, but Jack Keane really wants to take over Syria, and so he won't work for Trump. And so Jim Mattis said yes. Jim Mattis was on the board of directors of General Dynamics. Yeah. He was on the board of directors, left, was Secretary of Defense, did all our war things, resigned, and he's right back at General Dynamics. Yeah. And those conflicts of interest, I mean, one of my favorite things about doing my show is I watch these hearings, and before I watch them, I look at the backgrounds of these witnesses, and they never tell you the private sector background. They only tell you their government history. And this goes on mainstream media too. They have all these people that work for companies right now, and they'll say, this is a ex-CIA analyst or like a military expert who at the same time is working for these defense industrial complex companies and raking in millions of dollars. They never tell you the private sector connections. I always do. And it's literally every episode. I can't think of anywhere I haven't found any conflicts of interest. It's stunning.
Is that one of the biggest problems you think that faces the American government right now, or would it be?
What's that?
Or let's say the conflict of interest between the private. I think somebody wrote a book called Flexions a while ago, and we were going to have her on, but it was about the revolving doors between academia and the big corporations and
CDC
and the government
CDC
and the
government
government
have the
the
same
government
problems.
Oh yeah, big time. And so do you think the problem, like, what's the biggest problem? Because I see that, and I'm glad Adam Curry talks about it on the No Agenda quite a bit these days, is the NGOs and the charities and the money funneling through there, going to Ukraine, coming back through all these organizations. I mean, is that a bigger problem, do you think, or this conflict of interest, or the money in Congress and them taking money from corporations, or what do you think's like one of the big things that could change?
I mean, I didn't expect to find the corporatism that I found. Because when I started my show, I was just reading every bill that passed the House of Representatives, because A, I thought that was possible, and B, I realized I knew nothing about Congress, which was the branch of government I have the most control over. So that was my whole shtick. I found the corporatism in the bills and laws. So, and now I can't unsee it. It's absolutely everywhere. And because of the way we fund our campaigns, that is why they're so beholden to these companies. And so I do think that the legalized bribery that is our campaign system, I think that is issue number one. And I think if we were able to solve that one, a lot of the other ones go away. Because, I mean, yeah, it's just corporatism is completely run wild in our government to the point that we have public-private partnerships where you can't tell the difference between the private sector and the government anymore. So here's a really good example. After 9/11, we found out that our firefighters and our police officers couldn't talk to each other. They just didn't have like a walkie-talkie system where they could speak to each other in the towers. And so when the first one fell down, a lot of people died in the second tower because they didn't know the first one had fallen down. So what we decided to do was have a nationwide first responder network so that we could communicate with each other, or not we, I'm useless, but like paramedics and firefighters and cops, you know what I mean? So that was supposed to be a part of our government. And they kind of half-assed tried it for a while and didn't set it up. And so what they did instead is that they've now given over $7 billion to AT&T, and AT&T is now our official first responder network. It's called FirstNet. It looks like it's government, but it's AT&T. Yeah. So now if AT&T is a bad company, makes bad decisions, free market and all that shit, are we able to actually let them fail now that they are our first responder network? No, we can't. They're an official part of our government, but we don't actually look at it that way. And there's so many examples of that. And we're seeing it right now where we have all these, you know, private companies, which are our healthcare system, but they're not functioning together because they're piecemeal and they're all worried about their profits. And, you know, there's hospitals that are freaking out because they can't do knee surgeries because that's how they make their money. The private sector merging with our government is a problem. It really is. And we have to figure out, I don't think that government should take over everything, but there are certain things that are essential government functions that should be government. And we need to find out what that line is and have government be effective. Like for me, it's what is effective government, not the size of it. And for me, like healthcare is clearly a government function. You know, producing products is clearly private sector. And we have really lost our way by letting the private sector do way too much of our essential government functions, in my opinion, just based on watching how badly we fail.
Well, that's the number one goal of Event 201.
What is Event 201?
Is to combine the private and the public and make it much more so that way.
Which used to be part of the key definition points of fascism, but we took that one out.
Yeah, we call it corporatism now because it's,
Event 201 was the...
Event 201 was John Hopkins University, Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation,
China
and
CDC.
the World Economic Forum ran a 10-day
and the American
simulation of pretty much the exact thing that's happening right now in October of last year.
Okay, it was in the fall, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. In October of last year,
And a lot of it was about it wasn't about COVID SARS virus.
And it wasn't really about how to help the people or how to manage the disease as much as managing the message.
The panic.
You know, how to get the how to get the right message out. Yeah. The messaging.
And
which was down. through celebrities. Like they called all this in the play scenario that they did there, like put it through
and two of
people's
the main
idols
goals.
And celebrities and all of a sudden basketball stars and Hollywood actresses and
we're getting governments to buy out the companies basically, and then still run the companies that way, so that Google gets to have a whole bunch more of the surveillance stuff and they'll get government funding from it, and also to shut down anything that's not official narrative. That was another big one because you can't let the narrative get away from you. Those were two of the main things they learned from it.
Well, and all this Russia. Oh, I'm sorry. Go on.
No, and that everyone's woefully prepared. So in the end of October, they had pretty much told everybody, we've audited, I guess, all of you, and you're woefully unprepared.
So one of the things I discovered after the Russia hysteria, I can't remember which episode it was, but I was watching a bunch of hearings And I was deeply disturbed with the way that the Republicans and Democrats in Congress were united in pushing Facebook and Twitter and Google into doing censorship. It's like they want the censorship, but they don't want to actually like say they're doing it. So they're getting their corporate partners to do it. Yep. It's very, very disturbing. Like this Congress is rotten to the core. They're not on the side of the First Amendment at all. And this Russia thing, I've found the whole Russia thing to be straight bullshit the entire time. And I read the Mueller report. I did an impeachment episode. I took a whole bunch of shit for it.
Yeah, you take it from both sides, I think, sometimes, eh?
Oh, yeah, I definitely do. If I picked a side, I would have much more money and a much larger audience. But like, I have a very small but very mature, wonderful group of people that listen to my podcast. But the minute, well,
that's what we all respect about you, though. Yep.
Well, thank you. It's been an interesting few years ever since the 2016 election, but that's been one of the most disturbing things that I've watched happen. Is just watch the way that Facebook and Twitter are being granted the power to shut people like you and I down.
Yeah, it's spiraling into fascism. I mean, that's what it really looks like from afar sometimes.
It looks like that up close too.
Yeah, I bet. Anyway, Jen, we'll let you get back to your lockdown, and happy birthday.
Oh, thank you.
What do you got coming up for projects and podcast episodes? What are you digging into these days?
Well, I'm just waiting for this $2 trillion monstrosity to become law, and I think it's going to take me probably 2 weeks to tear through it. So that'll be episode 212. And then after that, I don't even know. Everything that I kind of had on deck. Actually, I do know. I do have one on deck about facial recognition software, and especially with what's happening right now, I think we need to know where they were before, because they're going to ramp up biometrics. I'm almost positive. So after that, I don't really know, because Congress just, who knows if they're ever even coming back this year. So we'll see what happens. But you can find me at Jen Briney on Twitter. That's how we met. So if you guys want to talk to me there. And then Instagram's my happy place. Also at Jen Briney.
There you go. Awesome. Graham's on the Instagram. Right on, Jen.
Cool.
Thanks for coming on the show. Keep up the good work.
It was so fun. Thanks for having me.
Tell John we said hello.
I will.
All right.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Thanks.
Bye.
And that was our chat. It's the one and only Jen Briney.
Well, you ended that pretty quick. All of a sudden, boom, Darren's on the exit button. Did you get a secret bat signal from someone, or?
No.
Oh, okay. All right. Just trusting your intuition.
Yeah, it was like an hour 10. It just seemed like it was.
Yeah, that was good.
Yeah.
Yeah,
like time.
She knows her stuff. Got great episodes. I recommend people go listen.
It's scary how many different sectors believe on agree on the fascism part.
Yeah.
You know, like Jen doesn't come from our world with a lot of conspiracy stuff.
No.
But just from straight up reading legislation, it seems like the country's tipping into fascism.
Mm-hmm.
Dude, the money that's going into the Afghan war. She did a whole Afghan episode, and the 30 billion. Like, it's been hundreds of billions, and she uses the comparison of the Boston Big Dig, where they built that, how much that costs in comparison, and all the infrastructure projects in the States, and it's nothing compared to the money they're still sinking into Afghan. And the poppy fields, like 400,000 football fields of poppy fields that are still there, and then she talked about how that ramped up again, and Trump was supposed to get out of there, and he didn't, and it's just like, it just feels like it's a quagmire, the money that's going into these places. Like, they're saying they couldn't even spend $3 million. These smaller agencies that get the money funneled down can't even spend it in time. Like, they're getting too much money, they can't even spend it. It's just disgusting. And she did a great one on the EU too, which was fantastic. I think that was before the last Brexit thing.
Are they officially Brexited now?
I kind of wish you would have got into some of the farmer protests and some of the crazy rules that the EU is trying to do, and they're unelected, but rules on whatever, like how big your pillow can be, or, you know.
I think they had a teapot rule in there that everyone was all fired up about. I think that's what caused the Brexit. I'm telling you, that had something to do with that fucking teapot.
I wouldn't doubt that.
It was something to do with an electric kettle or something. I remember the story going around in the Britons. I was like the fucking straw that broke the camel's back. They were just like,
I mean, if that's not like feeling like you're being controlled when you can't even use your fucking teapot that you've used for
had the same
a decade.
teapot for fucking generations, and now it's outlawed by Brussels.
Yeah.
So they're making them use electric pots?
I don't know.
Or they're taking the electric pots away?
I'm paraphrasing like a lot right now.
Yeah.
It's funny because we had an electric pot. My wife got a whistling pot for the stove, and I don't know. It heats up about the same, and I'm sure it uses a lot less energy, right?
Then
the
what?
Gas,
The
the
stove?
gas instead of the electric, for sure.
I don't know.
But it's just the whistle. If you're not right there, then the whole house is so loud with this whistle. I don't know. It just kind of, I like the quiet, you know?
Doesn't the electric one whistle?
No. It just shuts
Just
off.
boil? Oh, right.
Oh,
yeah,
yeah.
that's right. They do just shut
Just
off.
hear them click.
I don't know.
Click.
I could see rioting.
But then you
over
just
the
keep
tea
forgetting and
kettle.
you go there and the water's cold.
No, you come back in a few minutes, but
You
You
have
know,
to
when you have
you don't have
kids
to
and you're
rush
off
back
doing
when
something.
it's whistling, yeah.
You don't have to rest back when it's whistling. Just enjoy it. Just settle into the
Enjoy the
whistle.
whistle.
yeah, you're right, I guess. Get a better
Anyways,
whistle.
this was a fun show with her. Hope she does well through all that 2 trillion. Can't
I
wait
really
to-
enjoyed watching, trying to catch up by kind of seeing her stuff today. Just watching
Oh,
her.
yeah.
She got interviewed on C-SPAN. That's pretty cool.
Did she?
I don't know.
Wow.
Do you ever watch C-SPAN?
No.
I'm kind of a
Do we
geek.
get C-SPAN
I'm kind
in
of a
Canada?
geek. You can. It's obviously
Oh,
online.
online.
But
Yeah.
I'm kind of a
Totally.
geek like that too. I like to just sit around some days and just watch and see what's going on. Try and learn something, right?
Well, she's watching some of the stuff that I'd have to go back to the episode for the details, but stuff that nobody else is, like the mainstream's not covering it, and she's finding gems in there.
Tons.
She's recording it, so doing the NA kind of recording clips and stuff like that, and deconstructing it a little bit. So it's pretty interesting.
Congress
that
is a
way.
conspiracy in itself.
Oh.
Yeah. Big thanks, Jen, for coming on the show. Big thanks to you guys for tuning in. We appreciate it.
Supporting this value for value
Supporting
model.
the value for value model. grimerica.ca/support. There's a Stripe option there. There's a PayPal option there. A bunch of different options there. We understand bunchies are hurting right now, so we can wait till you're not hurting if we need to. But if you're not hurting, head over today. Sign up. It'll make you feel better. Boost your karma. If you don't want to support the show financially, there's a bunch of different ways in the show notes you can support us. Don't cost you nothing. You can view the show, share the show, sign people up for the newsletter.
You could go on the Joe Rogan show and give the show a shout out.
Yeah, that'd be a good one.
Yep.
Yeah, go on Rogan and give us a shout out, or
Mhm.
like maybe on I don't know what's another big one, like Fox News. No, we don't want those kind. We
Jeez.
don't. The mainstream
You want
people.
Tucker to?
The Rogans are like the halfway unplugged.
Yeah, I don't know. It would be fun to see Tucker.
I don't know. She said she didn't even get a JRE bump, so who knows? Might not even be.
Maybe Jerry doesn't even
Might
really
not be
have any
worth it.
listeners. It's just a scam.
Yeah.
Ooh.
That's a good one.
All right, guys. Thanks for listening, and we will see you next week. All right, guys. Thanks for tuning into the live show. We appreciate it. Last live stream from the strip mall. Enjoy the lockdown, folks, and be kind to each other. We love you.
See ya.